Cool. So let's minimize this, and we'll just go into Bitcoin's move at the minute. So this obviously is going to be streamed to YouTube, so we'll start the video now. So if we're looking at Bitcoin at the minute, when we're looking at a meta of how the market's currently doing, and I feel like this is probably one of the most important things that you need to look at applying to your trading. When you're assessing these moves and understanding where moves are going to go in the future. So what did that end up hitting? So I had a level in and around here. I mean, this chart's a couple of days old, to be honest with you. I haven't really. So it's just the base of the move that kept holding. What did this end up going for? It was probably something in here. You can already see it. So it went through its hourly level. So nothing new there. Everyone can make sense of that. But what I wanted to do is kind of help people build this general picture of the market, and give them a better feel for understanding these moves, how they develop, and how they can kind of build on top of that to create that story in the chart, because I find that incredibly important. So what we're going to do firstly is we're going to go to Bitcoin, on a high time frame, and actually dissect where this move is and what this move has done. So what I would like to do is actually invert this, which I do quite a lot, because I find it really useful when you're looking at things from both sides, because ultimately it's the same on both sides. You get a trade wrong at the end of a pump, you're going to get just as wrecked as getting the trade wrong on a dump. So it is very much a singularity between the two. So if we're looking right here at what held on Bitcoin, and we're looking at a cycle being created, you've come down, you've found your support against this trend here, which would be the 4 hour. Now, you've obviously created your weekly trend. Now, the reason I'm using a weekly and not a monthly is because there really just isn't a lot going on with the monthly right now. If you break your all-time high, these levels are going to be significant 100%. Like this 37k level, in the future is possibly going to be something, really important. But, when we're looking at this now, we've got this weekly trend and we've tested a hold level. Now, a lot of people will be looking at this going, oh, it's trying to create a distribution cycle, which it totally is. You've got trends that are refusing to break, from both sides. You've got, I'm at the bottom of this, because this here is where the whole of this move starts. Okay, so this is kind of like here would be your valley if you were to flip your chart, but here would be where the trend starts. This is kind of like what starts all of this move. So this for me is 100% the trend. And it never hard closes. Very similarly to how this to me would be the trend. You've got your top bottom of your move here, and the thing is, you could change this to a 15-minute time frame and look at this, just in this move. All of this makes sense. This is 100% where you'd look at drawing your trend. It's the bottom part of the move to your next base point, to your next reach point. And this is kind of followed, and you've obviously tested the minimum requirement of your hold level and had a pullback, and that pullback was to this hold level here. So there's not a lot new going on in Bitcoin right at the minute. However, when people are looking at the move on Bitcoin and where they actually think it's going, I want to highlight a few things when we're looking at levels it can test, where it's been. I explained to a few guys in previous streams that this level was created way the hell in the past. It was this here. And then what I'm going to do is show you, why these levels are relevant, and kind of the point of I'm trying to make with these. So even if you get rid of all of your other chart, you've kind of got three levels that exist here. You've got your 42k all-time high. You've got the first kind of cycle that got created on Bitcoin. Go back to your replay tool, break this down to say a 15-minute. You can see there's something very fractally in here. You come up, hit a break level, lose local trend, and then you're laddering up against this to try and confirm over the top of. This is, that's. I mean, look at what happens the moment you do. After coming back down below and holding this greedy level. You're 100% trying to create a cycle that's based around here. So I think that's really important as a starting block when we're looking at these levels right now. One sec. Let me change this to an hourly so we can keep where we are on our chart. When we're looking at this move right now and some critical levels on Bitcoin, it's very easy to see why these were 100%, mission critical, need to hold levels. All-time high, first cycle created, first distribution cycle created. You've got three levels that exist there, right? And then if we, scroll along a chart after this dump and look at where Bitcoin held, and for those guys that have seen in the in the Discord, I called this and this. That I didn't call, but by the same merit, it's also fully explainable as to why. Likewise with the weekly hold, I had I was missing a tiny bit. I think I took like $100 off. It had blown through weekly levels. I was kind of looking for it to come a bit deeper, but it is what it is. So anyway, when we're looking at what Bitcoin's currently held, it's held really important levels, and it's not if you're coming down to a level and you're just going to sit on top of this, that's indicative of breaking trends, breaking ranges. When you're breaking down this, which is your daily, you've got a range that you've now created that you can, start to slowly move up off, and you've also created another trend here. So the range of Bitcoin now fully exists, as you would have had something like, wasn't that, it was this. Where you would have had something like this in the moment, it wouldn't have been that, it would have been this. And I'm sure it hard closes on a smaller time frame to something, as you would have had this, you've now got this supporting the move. So, you've dropped your range, you've cooked all this, and now it's kind of struggling and finding resistance on it's this level here, but there's something more fractal. I think it's like the origin point that exists like here. I think is specifically what this is trying to get back above. In order to regain this accumulation cycle here, it's also got to test the distribution cycle, and all of this was trying to distribute. Hence why when it finally hits its whole level, it breaks its trend and just smashes straight down. So we've done quite a lot on distribution. I often find distribution a lot easier to recognise than accumulation. But then I want to come to, a further meta of, because we've obviously marked, this hold level which held, that's gone. We've marked this level that's tested, that's gone. I would possibly say the 43.5 level is gone, just purely because that's a hold level. That's not really a big time frame origin level or anything like that. Whereas if you look at this level here that obviously we've marked on the hourly, this was this had rejected and basically from the top of the move. So when you're looking at origins, it's kind of like, or bases of the move, or wherever you are, within Cotton's courses, understanding the relevance of it is almost like the size of the move that it rejected, or the size of the move that's holding it up. You've got a big 25% dump, I think it was, big 25% move down. This then becomes this point of compression that's going to try and hold the whole of the chart up. Hence why, you on first test, you get a sick 5% move, because there's always going to be. So let's go when we're looking at the next part of this, which of course is, so if we get rid of this trend, which was just to illustrate stuff in the past, here's your daily break. We've tested this. We've hit a hold level. So what I want to do now is, because this kind of becomes the point, is like, what can hold Bitcoin back? Because we've seen this huge rejection again from the origin level here. So now I'm curious as to, if you look down this chart and what can hold this up, you've got all of this range untested. Like this bounce, don't get me wrong, if you start breaking this trend, I think you're going to come down and test something like this, and then at that point you've got a weekly. Like this could be a really good setup for distribution. But you've also got to take into account what you've actually done. You've got a valley here. I'll mark this in red, similarly to how I've marked this. So you've got a valley here, and you've kind of got your valley here, which is confirmed as an origin point as well. When you wick through like that, you're probably going to come down and get a bounce on this level. Possibly. It depends how you come down and how fast you fall, etc. But when you're kind of looking at this, everything's either expanding or compressing. And, obviously you've had your big expansion, you've come out, you've tested. So now you're kind of Pandora's boxing down. So to understand, like, the confines of the chart, are incredibly important, because even though you've got this level here, understand that this is your all-time high. So if you lose this, you're gonna try and break the move down here. And then your next point is to understand that this is an origin level. If you lose this trend that fuels loss, you're going to fly through this origin level. You very rarely break an origin level before you break trend, because it's just going to act as that point of compression until you come to the point where you've broken trend. And back to the point that I say about origin levels, you're either going to ladder up and break through slowly, you're either going to reject straight off it, or you're just going to blast straight through. And that situation where you blast straight through is usually when you break a trend. Like here, okay, this broke a trend and there's an origin level at 31,123. I just know because I've charted this so many times. This guy right here. So when you're looking at the bottom side of this move and as to why this rejected, obviously you've got your origin point here, which is kind of like a global event versus the legacy event, which is your weekly. So you've kind of budged Bitcoin now into this point of, like, the bottom side is more or less catered for when you're looking at what could dump, what couldn't, what could test, what couldn't. Like, you've got all your points of trends that are kind of going to guide you through all of this. If you're going to look at taking along on Bitcoin, the two chances to take along, just to see where it goes, have probably gone. Not to say that Bitcoin isn't moving up, but when you're looking at on the top side, this is your daily level, your daily break, right? And too many people look far too interior and, like, look at this and go, oh, it's dumping. Like, this weekly trend. Look how many tests it's had to break out of this, right? Like, you can linger here for another week or two and just slowly ladder down until you hit one of these trends. In fact, you could even, to be honest with you, it really wouldn't surprise me over the next few weeks if we start to come down to here and get to this point here where we almost test 42k again. Here. This point here against this trend. I'm not saying it's going to happen, but to just slowly, be in this place of compression where it has to make that decision point, this is where you're going to get your biggest move. But we've hit a break level. We've broken this move. We've broken this whole distribution cycle. So then it becomes this question of what can hold Bitcoin down. So if we go to the weekly and kind of have a look at some levels, I would instantly be looking at this, kind of like your first top of the body. Not particularly tested. However, what I like to do when I'm marking levels is work down into smaller time frames on top of these levels. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this guy's colour just to make it a bit more. So yeah, look, that to me would seem like a really, really smart shot to take right here. Just because it's flown back down through, and you've also created an origin level there. You know, these key spots in a chart don't disappear over time. They kind of recreate themselves. You know, and there's some other stuff in here that makes sense, but you know, this to me would look like a really smart short. So we've kind of established like the first level that could stop Bitcoin, because it actually becomes quite important when you're looking, because I think Bitcoin looks really strong. Like I don't think we're gonna. I'm pretty certain we're going to see all time highs on Bitcoin. You know, and obviously that can change if we start lingering around here and breaking through this trend. Like no one will have this trend, and this trend's like the really important. Like we are losing time. This trend's incredibly steep. You know, we're going to get to a point. You know, we could lose this, come down, start breaking up, and even get to this point and fall down. Like there's nothing to say that can't happen. But you know, when we're looking at the different cycles, you use trend to ascertain which cycles you're part of. You know, you've got your huge cycle that exists from here to here. You know, break this trend, you're going to come down and hold something in here. I'm thinking you're going to hold 25, 560 or something like that. There's like a hidden level here. But I think there's a possibility that you're going to come down and hold this, but you know, you don't quite know yet. And this trend will also play a big part in it. If you look at dumps and the way that they happen, like this will act as a point of support even after the fact. Likewise, when we come up and test this, this will act. This trend here will act as a form of resistance, 1,000,000%. That there's not even a doubt. Like there will be a short that exists on this trend, there will be a long that exists on this trend, and there will also be on this trend here, there'll also be a long. Like there's lots of different parts of this that you'll be able to get. But just look, like if you look at a move, like what are you trying to do? You're trying to hard close the weekly that you still haven't done. Hard close this weekly. There really isn't much holding Bitcoin back. Like, so I did some work on this actually. I did do some work on Bitcoin currently. All of this is cooked. Like you've got like one level, which is like a 63,050, I think. Like when you're looking at this, like look, tested. You've got this level, which isn't quite tested, but I'd be looking at 63. I would be looking right here. This level here, there's like a cycle in it, but again, there's not a lot. Can you come and hold this? Possibly. But again, when you're looking at these moves, you're not particularly going to break up out of this cycle after creating an origin level, you know, and not hold something like this, you know. I think it more just bears the question: are you going to array trend out once more? Are you going to come down and hold this? Like, there's longs to be had here. Are you going to, and this is just how I would assess my meta right now. You know, I'm looking. I've had this trend, you know, marked for a while against this weekly, which obviously we've explained why. Just because you can clearly see why. Like, it doesn't even need to be said. Like, look, it doesn't matter whether it's hard closed, it's not broken it. Like, legacy events from the past, like, understand the fact that this was a cycle, this is a cycle that tried to gain, it didn't gain. Therefore, this is still the same as that. In fact, it looks identical. Like, literally identical. Look. That. So, that's kind of how I'm looking at Bitcoin at the minute. When we're looking at levels to hold, you kind of tested your front side. You're going to be coming down and holding some of this other stuff. Personally, like I quite like the look of something like this, like something along here, possibly this. And I know it looks tested, but what I'd be doing is I'd be then massaging through and seeing, and like I quite like the look of that. And you've still got time to come down to it. Failing that kind of like the top of this range or kind of like this. I think 46242 is a really cool spot as well. But let's break this down to the 12 as well and have a look. Yeah, I like that. I like this level. This could kind of be like a part of the fuel for a bigger move up. Because again, this is the point. Like, yeah, you've lost trend. Yeah, you're breaking down, but look how slowly you're bleeding. Like, it was always going to have a retracement. It was always going to have a pullback. You've tested your whole level that you need to test to move up. You've tested the weekly. You've hit a break level. Like, can Bitcoin break down? Yeah. But right now, it looks like there's more work to be done for Bitcoin to break down than move up. So that would kind of be my analysis. So I just wanted to really get everyone's thoughts on that. Maybe ask why I've done certain things. Why certain things exist on my chart, and maybe like suggest things that you would have done differently, and we'll discuss that.
Got a question. I'm really struggling to understand what you're basing the levels and the trends on, because they look like sometimes they're floating in something that I don't recognize.
Okay. So which trends are you referring to specifically?
For example, the yellow ones in the middle, they seem like they're so far back in history that it doesn't make sense to me.
Okay. Why wouldn't it make sense? And I'll explain why. All of this only exists because it's reacting to this, right? So when we're looking at a 12-hour range, so what I was doing is I was looking at these candles, and you can clearly see that this is testing something in the past. Like you can clearly see this by the tests. So when I was on the 4-hour chart and I was looking at these levels, if you watch me, I basically was here and I was looking at this. I like the look of this because of the tests. But the moment I mark this, I know that this isn't testing anything in here. I knew that this was testing something in the past. So my first instinct is to go back to my time frame and find the strongest level in the past that this is reacting to. Like it was obvious, and this is probably reacting to something else in the past. Like charts replicate over and over these same spots, and these same significant levels, and that's you know really important. Like in this moment, this was a brilliant trade to be taken. It was the top of the 12-hour base, but then when you're looking at a cycle, and I'm at the top of this here, does this not just look like a cycle being created? I'd possibly go right here just because of this test. I think that there's probably going to be a little accumulation candle in here, just from experience. Happy to be wrong. Yeah. So this was where I marked it, and look, obviously on the 12-hour, but like I said, look, there's going to be like a little accumulation candle in here. Just because of how this tested, I could tell that this was kind of like the origin point of the move. So when we're going back to this 12-hour time frame, and obviously I mark specific levels, like the top of like a 12-hour range, it's for a specific reason because I can just see certain levels and why they exist on the chart. So again, when I'm potentially looking at this, I'd possibly again break this down to something smaller. And it hasn't quite got to this yet, but I'd definitely be looking here. Possibly something off here, but the point is when you're looking at levels and just randomly marking them, what's what's the logic in that? Like, so would you do? And this isn't like a sort of a low angle take or anything like that. But my question to you would be, what's your logic flow for taking a level?
So I think what I'm struggling with is how would you trade it? Because to me it looks like 3 out of 6 times it's just moving through and it's not really reacting, and then 3 out of 6 times it's reacting.
The same
Yeah.
way as any of this.
How would
Sorry.
you decide whether to mark a wick or the base of a candle? Because it seemed like when
Relevance.
we were watching Cotton Candy, he was like always marking wicks, but watching Dope, I'm saying he's marking bases a lot, so I'm kind of confused.
Believe it or not, Cotton always marks the bodies of his candles. It was more just on a 2 seconds. I've just got it. There we go.
Yeah, it's on different time frames, right? That they
Yeah,
are. Yeah,
it's it's,
exactly.
it's, it's on different time frames, but if you've just watched Future of Trading, Cotton does mark the wicks. But if you look at all of his new content and all his new material, he exclusively marks bodies. It entirely depends on the move and the strength of it. For example, like this isn't what it tested, but you could have marked the wick and taken a trade here. 100%. Like, but it's important to understand, like, everything is reactionary. So when you're looking at this right here, understand that this is reacting to something here. Like, I can already tell, like, when you're looking at candles and tests and what's holding, like when I was here on like the 12 hour, and obviously I was looking at some levels, but I came back to my 12 hour and I was like, okay, well this here would look like a really smart spot to take along. This is a 12 hour, like, look at what things are trying to create. Like, this is the first 12-hour range that you created up here. Okay, we've obviously marked these levels in the past that have been tested and they've moved up off. Okay, 44 427. So we've established, if I change this color to like green, maybe light blue, cool. Here's the bottom of the move. Here's the origin level that we marked from the past. Like, look, which is the hourly candle, which is here. You know, in I mean, instantly so obviously this is your origin level, which is what I marked, and I mean, I when we had this big dump, right, I was like in with our guys. I was telling them, I was like, guys, 2 seconds. Let me go back to the normal chart. When we were up here, I was like, guys, don't even bother. Take your long here. Trust me. This is where it's going to bounce, because I just understand where cycles are created and how they exist. So, not to say that I'm always right, but I understood that this was significant, and the next point up was this being significant. So then, when you work through your chart and you understand that you've bounced off here, you've bounced off here, are you going to hold something in here? Possibly, like, you've got levels reacting off this, but now I kind of think that it's more reasonable to start looking at a local time frame. And of course, this is all creativity. Like, this would just be how I would assess moves and how I would look for levels. Because what I almost certainly wouldn't do is just go and go, oh look, a level here or a level here. Let's mark it and see if it hits. Like, I want to see this level, okay, that we've held over time, that we've tried to hold over time. Like, you can see, this is what you've tried to hold. Very, very similarly to if you go to like a daily time frame, right? And you look at this, okay? This right here. Okay. Look, you come over it and it's obvious what levels you try and hold over time, and you're just coming down to back test them. Certainly in an uptrend, that's what you'd be doing. Here, like, you're trying to break over it. What do? You come down and back test it perfectly. Likewise with this level, you've tried to get over it continuously. Look, and then when you come over it, you come back test it. Done. So that kind of is my logic flow as to as and why I would look at taking levels. Um, you know, but again, I would probably what I would probably look to do is break this down to maybe something greedier. Like there's a valley here, like this valley here, kind of you can just tell, or you can go something greedier in this. Just by the way that this is testing, I'm going to say this. Just by the way that this confirms multiple times, and then also you're slightly below the wick, which is what a lot of people would have, which also coincides with this, which also maintains your ladder point. So, and look, you can see that this is the level that it's been trying to hold over the top of. When you actually find the specific point, you can get an idea roughly of where you're looking to test. Like, so personally, like I said, when I'd be looking at levels, I'd be looking somewhere between here and here. And again, I'd probably go to that because it isn't always going to test the exact spot. Like it's acceptable to move it up a tiny little bit and go off an actual level. You don't always have to, and it's not just a one trick thing where I'm going to be like, guys, within one session you're going to be able to take these trades and understand exactly where to take them. But what I am saying is like just arbitrarily marking. It's all right for range trading. Like when you're in a range like this, cool. Mark a level, take a trade. Like it's fine. But when you're looking at go on.
How do you decide? Because I've seen sometimes whenever it comes back and tests a level, you just remove it, and sometimes you leave it there and expect it to come back and bounce off of it. How would you determine what you think it's going to do?
So what? So say during this move, if I think that this is gonna dump or like how would I assess which level is that what you're asking?
Um, yeah. So I guess like right there on like May 13th or something, kind of where it starts hitting that blue level. Um, I would consider that tested, right? So when it dumps down and it comes back up and kind of, well, okay, I guess it's just hitting another level up above it.
Levels recreate over the chart over time. Like they still because think about this. You've got okay. You come up. You hold this. Okay. This level here. Okay. What's going to happen if you go below this level? Okay. Come down, hit this, and go up to here. Hold under, and then break through. What's that then going to become? Another hold level.
Okay.
Do you see what I mean? So to have this, I only consider things tested or untested at the start of like within that range. Okay. So, and what I mean by that is because if you looked at every single level on your chart and said was it tested or not, you'd never be able to take a trade because everything tests over time multiple times. It's what a chart does. It goes after liquidity. So to say that these levels don't make sense because they exist back in like May time, just again isn't really logical because what will happen over time is the significant levels on your chart will recreate it. So look, you had your perfect trade here. So like I said, you come down, test this again, fall under, come back up and test this, and then decide to hold and break over. What have you then created? A hold level. Let me show you a perfect example of this, right? This all-time high level, right? Here. Is that not the exact same level as this? And did you know? So for example, right, this all-time high level, for you to say, to say that it's tested, we tested it here. Like you can see very clearly there was a bounce off it. I took that trade, I remember. But the whole point is, you then come under it and you hold underneath. That is the same level as this, but understand that the origin of where a level comes from is normally a specific point. And you know, understanding whether to take something in a range or not. When you've lost this, you're not coming down to test this. You test this to the dollar, which is this, which is the equivalent of like, almost a backside hold, like a legacy backside hold. This range is being protected by this level. This is controlling all of this upper range. Likewise, this origin level is controlling all of this upper range. I'll show you how relevant levels are from the past, like, because it was again another trade we took. It was this level. The origin point, 15-minute valley. Okay. What's this trying to create after this dump down from 57k? Trying to create an accumulation cycle, right?